Okay, it's 6:30, so I will go ahead and call the regular October school board meeting to order. For roll call tonight, please note that Director Petersburg is absent, but all other directors are here in person. Do I have a volunteer that's prepared to read the mission and vision statement?
I can do that.
Thank you, Carol.
At Decorah Community School District, we embrace student learning and well-being as a fundamental purpose. We will, in partnership with our students, families, and community, make the world a better place. The mission of the Decorah Community School District is learning, thriving, creating our legacy. The vision of the Decorah Community School District is Decorah Community School District will be a collaborative, innovative, learning-centered organization, empowering students to embrace their personal strengths and create their future.
Okay. Next, we will begin with old business, and we have several items on the agenda under old business. The first is the second reading of number 605.1 through 605.3, selection of instructional materials. And as mentioned, this is a second reading. So does anyone have any parts of this that they would like to discuss?
The first thing, maybe note, am I correct interpreting that these are mandatory policies?
Yeah, these are mandatory policies, and so we're just taking them from ISAB. Probably a couple of the things that maybe one of the change is the reconsideration committee in the past. One of the changes with the state law was students are not able to serve on that committee, and that was something that people had in the past. I can't tell you why that change was made. I could just tell you that change was made. But we kind of looked at these last year, and then there was some small updates to them that we put them back in this year.
Okay, and we had the first reading of this at our regular meeting in September. With very light discussion at that time, as I remember.
Well, that's when you have policies that you're reviewing and you can't change them anyway. It's kind of pointless to conduct a real great extensive discussion because we're wasting our breath. It's not as if we have any say in what the legislature does. They just kind of
No. If there's specific questions you want to ask, but I think Brown's point is well taken. We're not bringing made up policies to the board, so probably a good idea if we approved them.
Yeah. As one of your predecessors used to say, the golden dome of wisdom has rained from on high, so all hail. I'll move approval of the mandatory policies.
Okay.
And I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is the second reading of board policies, compulsory attendance, and chronic absentee and truancy. So, this was legislation that was passed early in the summer. And I think so
it was passed in May. The disconnect was getting the direction out to the school district. And if I can jump in.
Yeah.
So getting the direction out, the interpretation. So these are the policies again. These are the policies that are recommended that we adopt. How they get interpreted is kind of up to a little bit of local control. And I can say last week when we had the superintendent's meeting and Mackenzie Snow, Dr. Snow, the director of the Department of Education attended, there were some questions from other superintendents about, well, are we going to get more direction on because parents can call it an absence, and for medical absences, can be medical, but it could still count toward your absence, or it could be exempt. So it could be put in as med X. And so we were kind of asking for clarification on that. And we were told that we are allowed to practice local control, which means we're not gonna get more documentation on that.
Specifically with medical excuses
I think-
or other excuses?
I think
as
in
well?
general it's excuses, but I think a lot of it is medical. And a comment was made by a different superintendent. Well, so if I've got a family who's not sending their child to school and we don't, and we don't give them med X, then then we're gonna send them up for truancy. And we could be and then they could turn around and try to go to open and roll out, or go to a homeschool, or do an online academy. So the person was kind of making the point, like, we don't really want to scare off our students. So, and I think, and we've had a lot of internal discussions and with our admin team, I think there's a fine line between stressing the importance of coming to school every day and making sure that we're listening to the reasons that people are absent and making whatever accommodations are feasible in that.
Mhm.
And because I would say, and I'm not gonna ask for people to raise their hands, but I think we've gotten more feedback on this, because we've already communicated out with parents our interpretation twice now. And I think we've got more feedback on this than anything that we've sent out this year.
Well, and in this time period that, this was set in motion, it also was through the first, bit of the school year, when by following the letter, some certified letters were sent. So I want us to, really consider how we can best support our student body, support our staff, not to be overhindered with admin responsibilities. But also make sure that kids get to school, because obviously this didn't come out of absolutely nowhere. I think it's true to say that school attendance has dropped, especially after the height of the pandemic.
Right.
And I just want us to implement this in a way that will, encourage attendance without adding extra burden onto everyone.
Mhm.
I think it is important to say that, this was passed pretty quickly without a lot of, were you ever asked for, did you ever?
No,
I mean, were
no,
schools asked for input on this legislation or consulted
Well.
with it all?
no.
And my next question is, I mean, it says right here that this is not being enforced with private schools. This is a public school.
Yeah, I guess a couple of the
Law.
questions that came out, and that was one that, I mean, I know I've probably gotten half a dozen people giving me specific feedbacks. I know the principals have had people questioning, what about this trip that we were gonna take, or my child's, has this medical condition. But one of the parents I had feedback from said, okay, thanks for your response, and, does this apply to private schools? And that wasn't even on my radar to look, so then I went in and looked, and, no, the private schools are not that required to have these policies, and,
And I think it's also important for, it to be said aloud that, going through this process and meeting the criteria of 10% of the days being missed warrants a certified letter to be sent by the county, and that is not free.
yes, the school district sends a letter.
Oh, excuse me. So the certified letter.
So that cost is coming to the school district, and the Dubuque School District thinks that they're gonna maybe spend about $30,000 this year if they have to send out, if they based on last year's. So, yeah, it's a cost, and again, the certified letter comes out at the 10% part. And then there's a 15% part where there's a meeting, and then there's a 20% part, but yeah, we could be sending out a lot of certified letters. I know in talking to the principals, they're trying to communicate either by phone or sending an email, hey, this letter's coming, because a certified letter has to be sent, it has to be received, and has to be signed for, and that's that process can take a while as well.
Mhm.
So
So that's 10% of a semester.
of a grading period.
Of a grading period, so a
So
semester or a trimester?
they're actually all defined in our FAQ. There's an extensive document that talks about how many, because not every semester and correct me if I'm wrong, I could call Mr. Hurst. You're doing quarters?
Orders, so ours ends on this Friday. We sent a good number of them out earlier this week.
So if you have 5 absent days in a quarter, is that?
4 would be
right?
10,
Four?
because it's a little bit shorter quarters for the fall. We're ending the semester before winter break, so you have to hand count your days and then you have to figure out 10% and. You know, it's not as easy as it sounds, because then you think about, we have a different bell schedule, so modified block A and B days.
Right, right.
How do you determine what a day is? Like,
Mhm.
it was a lot of work by our office, trying to sort of try to figure out, well, how many, has this person reached 10% absenteeism? And what, you know, how, by definition of how many periods are we talking about? And
Mhm.
it's not easy, it's a lot of
No.
work.
And
And-
that's not many days either in a
No, it's not.
No,
quarter.
it's not,
10%
especially
not a lot.
That's-
when you think of illness and in this post height of the pandemic time, when we want people to stay home when they're symptomatic or have a fever or are sick. There's just so much about this that doesn't make sense to me. And my empathy goes out to all school administrators here who have been working with staff on all the details and to work through all the nuances with your schedule. It's incredibly complicated.
And I just add, we had a process before, and we would send letters in the past, but now we never had a criteria of 10% and a requirement that you send them out to everybody who's at 10%.
And I'm guessing that letters were probably not sent this early in the school year after the first quarter of school,
Which ends Friday,
right?
the first quarter.
Quarter ends Friday, and then the trimester November 7th.
Mhm.
So once again, this is policy. We don't really have any authority to change anything in this policy.
No, I have to run for office. I mean, a different.
Well,
office.
different, yeah.
Sorry.
Running for school board doesn't mean you have anything to say with school administration.
Right.
And again, I reiterate what Cindy said, it's well intended, we need to get people, you know, chronic absenteeism is a challenge. It's not a made up problem, we struggled coming out of the pandemic, I think a lot of people have seen that in their workforce. But there's just a lot to unpack here, and it's difficult to do it, and the part where there's local control and local decisions being made, it's kind of,
Fuzzy?
yeah, makes it a little difficult.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, when there's a decision to be made that could potentially get someone in trouble one way or another, it's like, it's happy to say, oh, no, we don't know anything.
Yeah.
So the second attachment in the agenda that the student absences excused, this is the existing.
that's what we replaced it with, yeah.
Mhm.
I just put that in there so that, I tried to make sure that we knew what was leaving board policy.
So I don't know what to say, because, you know, as the mom of a senior in high school, to know that college visits are not excused, that religious services are excused, that
Competent instruction is excused, private instruction, whatever that means.
so how can we best support our staff and our families. During this messy legislation.
Tylenol.
I mean,
I would say that the admin team has kind of worked, and we've had some spirited discussions amongst ourselves about trying to make sure that we're all on the same page, because we don't want one type of absence to be allowed at one school and not at the other, so but there's also comes an understanding of absolutely seniors are gonna take college visits, and the notification, if one is required, can look different, like, hey, we see, Tim's been gone for 3 days, it's been coded as 3 of them were college visits, and then he had that cold, like, we could notify, but we don't have to like turn them over to the, that's step one, hey, notification. The meeting that's required at 15%, I know, those can be scheduled in person, but they can also be done on the phone. So there's just a little bit of, an opportunity for maybe administration to add in a human element or some common sense or some understanding of the situation. But if there's a child who doesn't come to school ever on a Monday and is called out sick, that's probably an opportunity to have a discussion. And I know we've talked about how they're probably not doing very well in school, but maybe a deeper discussion about, are there other things going on that we can support the child with? But if I had a magic answer to this one, I'd probably be selling it to people.
so I'm guessing that the hardest part of the year is gonna be this first quarter each year. Or every quarter.
Say, does each quarter start a new
Yeah.
count?
So they're grading
So
period resets
theoretically,
at the
you
grade, yeah.
set 4 letters.
So I've had some parents that'll say, well, I'm gonna plan my vacation around the start of a new grading period, so like, those are the conversations that we're trying to navigate, right? They don't wanna, they have good intentions, they're trying to be proactive.
So at the end of, like, let's just talk about quarters.
Yeah.
At the end of the second quarter, it's 10% of quarter 2,
Yeah.
not 10% of the first half of the year.
Right, so whatever they've got in quarter 2,
So it's going to be 100% hard.
yeah, you gotta recalculate.
Yeah.
And it's actually hours, not even days, right? It's,
Well,
As
it's
I
supposed
read,
to
it
be,
says
it's kind
hours.
of an interesting observation too, but we've been going by days. Although it's hard because, to my earlier point, if a kid misses like 3/4 of a period, they're counted absent. Do you count that? And how do you figure that in, like, what's the wrong? How many absences from a singular period equal the day of school missed? And that's been the hard part of all of this for the high school and maybe for other buildings too, that how do you figure out what a day is,
Yeah, so if a student is missing first and second periods every day,
Cause we have like one that'll full, like if they missed the full day, but because we have a different schedule, if they didn't miss the full day, it's really hard for us to piece back together and figure out what a day is, so we do the best we can, but it's not perfect.
And to Cindy's question, I could see different times of the year being difficult, maybe a little bit at different levels, but we've predicted, and I think I've already heard, with Luther College and Luther College having a J term, that families will have opportunities there to travel during J term, and wonderful educational opportunities, and that could be something that we see more students going for that. And I certainly like, if mom or dad is doing something in Norway or anywhere exciting, that there's certainly opportunities to learn, and I would want to go.
I know. And I know we do have families who already have those plans
Yeah.
made for this year.
Yeah.
I do think there is some wide latitude to read into how some of these things are worded or poorly worded to work in our benefit. So to your example of J term for Luther College, an exception to this policy include children who are receiving competent private instruction. Well, if a student is in Norway or somewhere else and they are embarking on this trip and experiencing that educational experience, perhaps there is some latitude there to
Perhaps,
read
yeah.
read in the lines differently than maybe we could otherwise do so. But I do think the language within what the state has passed is very challenging. With good intent, but not perfect execution.
Mhm. I'm wondering too about, I'm thinking about high school sports. And I'm thinking about our, athletes that are missing days of school for tournaments. I'm thinking about students that are traveling to attend state competitions. How will all of those land?
I'm gonna start talking, but correct me when I say the wrong thing. If it's a school-sponsored activity, whether it be athletics or fine arts, if it's school event and you're traveling to it or you're missing time, that's an excused absence, because you, not even it's an absence, but you're doing it's an extension of your education. Probably the tough part is, gosh, I got back really late, I'm just tired. The next day, I'm gonna be gone for half a day. That would not be covered. There could be, in Central City, they would always go watch the state football tournament or something. And it would just kind of be a bonding thing. They wouldn't be playing in it, but they would be going, coach might take that as motivation. So going to watch someone else participate, at a state tournament, that would not be excused. I'm trying to think of other things or other examples.
So the SRP, school related participant. So one of the things the state did is they did release 2 sets of guidance, well, the guidance and an FAQ. The guidance on August 7th had like specific attendance codes, and then it was actually somewhat helpful because they had, how do you enter this in Power School so it codes correctly. So this was actually a thing that was good and new, because we have now a code that we can use that's exempt, and they said you can count them present because they're participating in a school related thing. They're not at school, but so that doesn't factor into any of it. It's gonna be SRP. And then to your point of like, if you go, let's say you went to a state tournament game or something, that would be SRNP, school related non-participant. That one is not counted present. That is an absence. So an example of, let's say you were gonna come back late and the family said, oh, they just got back in late. That would be FAM or family. It would be, and then we would say like, here's the reason, I got back late. That would not be, exempt. So the big thing is like, this is where it gets super confusing and new for us, and you guys can weigh into is there's like excused and unexcused, which is what we're kind of used to. But as far as like chronic absenteeism and letters, you have to kind of have this new vernacular of exempt and non-exempt, which is wholly different. So when Dr. Cronin's talking about med versus med-ex, medical, like if you say my kid's sick, that's excused, but with the guidance, med-ex would be like a chronic medical condition, or you've got a doctor's note, and so that's exempt, and that's not gonna, so it gets super confusing in a hurry. And so we have to really count up how many exempt absences versus non-exempt. So we're not required to send letters if they have lots of, let's say, exempt absences. So they've been out because they've been in the hospital for like 3 weeks. Well, we're not gonna have to send a letter for that because that's med-ex and that's exempt. But if they were off and on sick here or there, and they had some other things, and they had a total of 10% of non-exempt reasons, then we have to send a letter. So we also have to figure out, well, which of these absences are exempt and which of these absences are non-exempt. And that's where it gets, because you're trying to do right by families and be fair with all these things. So you've got to like parse out, you can't just look at a number, because like the number is not the number. You have to, okay, what kind of absences were each of these absences and when did they occur? And it's a lot more difficult when you're trying to do it the right way and work.
Yeah, and
support
I'm thinking
families.
about kids that are traveling to La Crosse or Rochester for therapies or orthodontics or all the things. We're in a rural area. We're far away from the next biggest thing, which will lead to more hours out of school. Um,
There's just countless issues.
Yeah.
Involved in all this. And. I don't know that we have the discretion to.
Yeah, or
Progressive.
probably, we've got some, a little discussion on how we interpret it, like the medical, I'm going to the orthodontist. I know principals have talked about how their secretaries or administrative assistants are getting real good at it. Well, make sure you bring in a note. So we can med X that. So there's some, so there, yeah, so, but we also know as, you know, whether we're parents or just ourselves, there's days that people are sick and can't go to school and shouldn't go to school. But you don't go to the doctor and confirm, yeah, you're sick. So that's the one that we've kind of debated and talked about is how we do those absences. So those would be excused, but as Brad said, excused but not exempt. That would be a medical excuse. So understanding and, you know, again, looking at, is there a pattern, you know? The child's always sick on Friday, or is it, you know, was it just an illness that kind of went through? They were sick a couple days and now they've been in school fine, so. But, probably the part that is the biggest difference for us is just having the hard and fast 10% and 15%, and then rules for, 'cause I think there was always a little bit more human interaction with the data and kind of looking and saying, look, we know this child is really, or student was battling something and, or went on 3 college visits and they're making their decision, and we wouldn't have sent a letter, but under the new guidelines, we will.
You mentioned having the opportunity to have Mackenzie Snow in one of your superintendent meetings recently. Have you reached out to either of our locally elected representatives?
I might have sent Michael Bergen an email. I'd have to look back. I just asked him actually talked to him. I'm not sure where I saw him at. But I've got every week I get new questions on it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to clearly communicate respectfully with our elected officials, just to be transparent about the challenges that we're dealing with. And
I would encourage parents to do the same.
mhm, mhm. Mhm. So, I mean, this is stated on our agenda as a second reading. Do we have any choice about whether or
Well,
not?
I would recommend that we approve the second reading. These are the policies from ISAB. We could certainly have more discussions about it if we want. We can always, something came up, have a third reading, but I really recommend we have the second reading tonight to officially put it into board policy.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't think we have any reason not to just approve it as policy now, and the interpretation questions are gonna be there, and it's gonna be landing on the desks of those people.
Well, I guess I'm grateful that communication is happening across the district. I encourage administrators to be in touch with pinch points and please be transparent with Dr. Cronin about what you're seeing day to day.
I'm smiling because I think they're pretty good at that, and Justin and Brad and I've had a couple of good text chats going on about what exactly are we doing with these type of absences, but there's a lot to interpret here.
And remembering too that further down the process, it gets referred to the county attorney who truly has discretion to file anything.
And I would back up, as that's a piece we didn't talk about. We did have the assistant county attorney attend our August administrator meeting. And we spent some time talking about our understanding of the policy, his understanding of the policy. You know, I talking to other superintendents, there are some folks that did, county attorneys that didn't even know there was a new policy. So the fact that ours was on top of it and came to a meeting was great, and we talked through some scenarios, but there's been some fluidity and different interpretations that maybe have changed since then. So yeah, we would not be the charging, but we at least have had a discussion there and continue to communicate with our county attorney. Is that a good enough summary?
Yeah, well, and I want the message to families in the district to be loud and clear that this is not a policy that we crafted. And we're doing our best, and I encourage families to, when you're in touch with your school admin team, they're working so hard. Please approach them with respect and patience, and they're carrying out the law. And please be in touch with elected officials with your questions about the law and how it came to be.
Well stated.
So with that in mind, I guess what our next step will be to go ahead and pass this. So I will move that we go ahead and pass the second reading. Approve the second reading.
Which specific
Of chronic
policies?
absenteeism and truancy.
So 501(3) and 501(9).
Correct.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
I
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Next is the annual review of policies, long range needs assessment. 103, 103 R1, on and on.
I don't know. C is just a list of annual policies that ISAB put out something, and was telling some folks that guess I was bored one night and I was looking around on ISAB's website. So there was very few, if any, changes, but these are policies that were meant to go before the board annually. I'm not sure. I did a spot check because this was kind of the first I'd seen it from ISAB, and I found other districts that don't do them manually, but I can tell you Decorah will now do them annually, and I sent it to a few of my friends and suggested they do like this.
So this was, the first reading was during our special meeting
Yeah.
in late September.
But I honestly don't think that anything really got changed on these.
No, I would say appreciate that ISB sent out that reminder with the listing that they had researched and put together of the ones that say you're supposed to look at them every year. So that's certainly a service that they provided to us. I'll move to approve the policy stated in section C.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, I'll ask for an approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve this evening's agenda as listed below.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is approval of consent items and the minutes from 2 meetings in September on the 9th and the 19th. Bills and personnel.
So we have a high school custodian on here. Is that now filled and we don't have an opening anymore, or are we still looking?
I think we're still looking for one.
For one?
I'm grateful to reduce that number by one.
The changes.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next, we have the opportunity for communication from the public. See a lot of friendly faces, but I don't see anyone looking at me or indicating that they have anything to say in this section, so we'll move on. There's next on the agenda is the presentation, but there is no presentation for this month of October, so we'll move ahead to new business. The first item under new business is to consider approval for an MOU veteran teachers minimum salary.
And this possibly could have been an old business. We did discuss this last month, but this is, we have a staff member who's got 11 and a half years of experience. And so when the governor put in the minimum salary for 12 years, they were they didn't qualify. And had a request that could I be moved when I get to 12 years in the middle of the year, which is not something that the district, we don't move people in the middle of the year on their salaries. However, as we discussed with the board, this is kind of a unique situation with the governor's minimum salary. And so I worked with Carrie Weber on getting a MOU that just indicated that this is kind of an opportunity to do this for a, one-time situation. Certainly if someone else is at a half year, this could be something that could happen for them when they are getting their 12 years of experience. There's a kind of an interesting thing where the years of experience based on your contact with students. So you would consider that like 91 days or 90.5 days into the middle of the year, which would be, I think, January 8th, if my math is correct. But we pay people on, we pay them 24 times. And so 12 pay periods, got that right, 12 pay periods will be up in February. So the second half of the pay periods would be in March. So that's just a little glitch in the matrix, but understanding that the half a year will be achieved in January, but the pay periods would be the March through August pay periods. So recommending that we approve this, and we tried to make sure that it made sense. And again, not a practice that we'll do for everyone, but this was kind of, I mean, it's a unique situation because of the governor's action, and maybe it was nice. Like sometimes we complain about the things we don't like out of Des Moines, but having a minimum salary for starting salary for teachers and a veterans minimum is a good step forward. And there's some other little problems that it caused with compaction, but I'd rather have those problems than not have those problems. So happy to make this recommendation. I'm glad to answer any questions.
This feels like a very fair recommendation for given our situation.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And this would only be for this year, or would this,
Well-
could this happen again next year with different people?
Yeah. We have a report, and of course I don't have it right in front of me, but I think we have about 5 or 6 teachers on their half step. Now, maybe 2 or 3 of them are beyond 12 years, so it won't impact them, but there's at least one person that's 9.5. And so in theory, in like 3 years, 2 years, that person would be at 11.5, and that could apply. And I mean, you never know what the salary scale will say for that person, but it's entirely possible that that person would also have the opportunity in the middle of the year to jump up to the minimum salary.
Mhm. But we're not, this is like what's on the agenda tonight is just for the
Yeah.
one
Just one.
specific example and considering this request. I agree. I think it's fair and I want to support our teaching staff as much as we can. I don't have a problem with having a change for the second half of the pay period of the year. I can't think of any concerns that I have.
I don't have any concerns with what we're looking at tonight. I do think there's maybe a consideration of looking at how we count years of experience for an educator, whether somebody starts in January, do we call that a half year? Or do we call that a year? So that everyone is on a full year instead of incrementals. I don't know if there's state law that would guide that, but
Mhm.
I think there's potentially another way to look at it, and maybe that helps down the road with future 3, 4, however many people that might come under this scenario in the future.
It's the one thing I would notice, even if we make a determination that that's a full year, which, you know, may be a good idea. I don't think IPERS is really gonna necessarily follow our guide, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good point.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't think, to Ron's point, I don't think there's a state law, but I think the practice has been for districts to kind of follow what IFRS says.
Sure.
But as pointed out, this is what's presented for us.
Yes, yeah.
I move that we approve this memorandum of understanding for the veteran teachers minimum salary as written.
I second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next is update on capital projects.
And I'm just gonna introduce Curtis Johnson real quick. Curtis is our new Director of Buildings and Grounds.
Welcome,
Curtis,
Curtis.
welcome. This is usually when we sing the title, if you don't remember. So just a small biography, you're a Decorah resident, yeah.
Yep, we've been here since 1999. Both of my boys graduated from here a few years ago. I'm a member of the fire department. Worked at the fire department for the city for 10 years. That's what brought us to town. After that, I worked at Casper's till 2 weeks ago. I've been here. This is starting third.
Awesome. So, staffing wise, I know Sean's kind of been helping you, but we had 3 openings and we're down to 1 opening
I
currently.
believe that's where we're at.
Okay, and maybe there's an applicant even for that 3rd spot.
Potential.
Okay. Staffing is coming along, and then project wise, I think the big thing, and maybe we can defer, you can sit down first, you don't have to stand up. Maybe if we start talking about our big capital projects, I think the one that some of them are a little bit more fun than other ones, and I would say that the softball complex, and Mr. Riley, I'm gonna defer to you, but I hadn't been back in there for a while, and then I saw on social media that the folks, is it Iowa Turf? Iowa Sports Turf put out a aerial image. I assume they had a drone that they got permission to fly. That was pretty cool, and then I had to make sure I snuck over there on a couple bike rides, but looks great.
Yes, that work is completed, irrigation is done, we've been able to get the sod to start taking root, we're in a really good place there, we're just waiting on the next step of the fencing. Got the N Fence Company from Cedar Rapids or Hiawatha lined up, and they've done a lot of fence work for us in the past. It's just them fitting into their schedule. At this point in time, I know they're booked back a little bit. We were hoping we'd see them this past week. As they indicated to us, but we did not, so. At any point in time, the hope is to get that fence in and get this fall.
Great, and I mean, it's been extremely dry. You mentioned irrigation,
Yes,
so it's gonna be alive next spring.
yeah. We are, if you get a chance to drive by, that sod is in really good shape.
Great.
So thankfully, because we had the irrigation, it really helped it. The batch of sod actually, from what the company working with, what they've got. This thing is in really good shape.
Good.
And I would have to say, after seeing, that they were talking about it being, the sod in, I went down and kind of walked around the field and gotta say that seeing this makes me realize that the old field really was pretty tough.
It was, yeah.
Just even going back years playing park and rec softball in that field, a hard ground ball would hit the grass and
Yeah.
pop up. Well, that's not gonna happen anymore.
Yeah, when you see it and it's actually done and it's laser graded, so the waters run the way it's supposed to, from a maintenance standpoint, we will make massive strides. Still some more work to do with some other pieces to be able to get done, as we've alluded to, in this process, but, the playing surface itself will be very
It's
good.
night and day, yeah.
Good investment for our field.
Yeah.
That we now own. Super exciting. Good.
And the ability to put in a permanent fence makes me happy.
Yes. We'll just,
Yeah.
like I said before, the softball players and, coaches will be in the piece as far as the maintenance of that, because Park and Rec usually took care of all of that.
Yeah.
Only thing we have to do is the fence, so.
Yeah.
Should.
Very good. A couple other things that'll be coming up. Originally, we had a 10-passenger van. And it was gonna be a new 10-passenger van. And the price was gonna be about $50,000. And so, couple things happened. We had an opportunity to get a used 12-passenger van. And as a reminder, the state allows schools to transport students in 12-passenger vans only if they're used. And I can't explain that. I just know that's the rule. And so, Chris had a contact, in La Crosse who, had one that had maybe 5,000 miles on it.
100, I think it was.
5,100. And so it was only $60,000. So that's $10,000 more, but you can talk about, again, when we put the, working rule is if it comes in, if it's gonna be something over $25,000, we then bring it back to the board for second approval, which we'll do shortly. And, then we added a new one, because we have a truck replacement, that's needed. And we'll talk about that shortly, because that's after we get done talking about the van, we can talk about the truck replacement. But we did park the old truck outside if anybody wanted to
Look at the rust on it.
look at the rust on it. So that's well overdue. So those are the big ones. Maybe the only other one that I can think of that's out here is, I know, well, a couple more, but, we started to do the interactive TVs one at a time, and I'm looking at Sean.
I have 4, not yet, but in the next couple of weeks, they'll be hung up and it's the start of that process, which is super exciting for the teachers. They're waiting for them.
And what is it a new piece or is it replacing something?
It's replacing the smart boards that they have existing. So a lot of the smart boards don't function, so they end up using them just as a backboard.
Right.
For taking up space. But they need something that's functional that the kids can interact with.
And the smart boards were installed like a long time ago.
Yeah, 16 years ago.
Yeah. I guess, yeah.
And this replaces the Apple TV in their rooms too, right?
It's-
It's
yeah,
a
it's-
combination.
Apple TV, because it's all built into the smart board device.
Mhm.
The first 2 classrooms are gonna be preschool.
Great.
They're using them a lot. She has our demo unit right now, Amanda Mackey does, and she uses it every day,
Great,
getting rid of it.
great. It's nice that the preschoolers get the first new
Yeah,
thing.
good for them. And I should probably point out, even though it's a miscellaneous budget item, the light bar at the high school commons was used last night for Harvest Moon dinner and got a nice little shout out and as soon as she said it, I was like, oh yeah, that's a big improvement, but I hadn't noticed it until it was brought up, but so we have new lights in not in our auditorium, lights in our high school commons for events, so that's a nice little,
Just a reminder, music boosters in combination with the grant that they wrote for the Johnson
Right.
Courage Foundation.
Right,
For performing arts boosters.
Yeah.
yeah, and our gratitude for that group for writing those grants and securing that funding.
so, we still have a few things, as we kind of always do, that, haven't gotten completed, and so this will be a working document. We may bring it back a couple more times, as the year goes on.
Of course, the other big thing was the middle school roof,
Oh, yeah,
which I don't think it's rained since they finished
No.
construction on it, so we,
Nope.
Actually, wants though to confirm, so.
yeah.
I'm sure all the teachers were monitoring,
And the librarians.
yes.
Yeah, so next year we can add on here the replacing the ceiling tiles.
so was my intent to spend a long time with this, but just kind of remind everybody, and that was my opportunity to.
It's nice to have a robust list and just to be able to see like what could be on the horizon. So thanks for having the complete list rather than just what's happening this year.
Yeah,
That's helpful.
and we've got, if you scroll to the bottom, the deferred items are probably the ones that we think will probably be coming back in the future. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, and this is listed as an update, so just a discussion item, no action. Next, we'll consider approving the 12-passenger van as discussed for $65,125. I'm excited that such a low mileage used vehicle is available. That's incredible to only have 5,000 miles on a used vehicle. And to be nearly in the budget of what we had previously approved. It's just, I'm excited that we can potentially have a 12-passenger van instead of a 10-passenger van.
And one thing, just to clarify, Mr. Riley, this opens up a lot more opportunities of the 10 one.
Yes, the
Would have.
10-passenger one we have, well, it's great, it doesn't have any room in the back. And the 12-passenger van that we currently have, in addition to this one, has an immense amount of room in the back, it's just a slightly longer.
Yeah, it's like.
Body,
almost
it's
like a-
it's on the same frame, the same body, or longer body, and it's. The 12-passenger van, I think there's probably about. I would say 5 to 6 different buses that we've actually canceled because we've been able to use the van, but not that.
And of course, the van is more fuel efficient than a bus. We want to be driving the van if we have less than 12 or less, right?
And the coaches will be the drivers or will the?
That's typically how it ends up. Yep. But we balance that a little bit in relation to where distance, number of kids. It's an extra responsibility. Sometimes they actually prefer the van instead of bus.
and as an example, cross-country is getting by with a bus and a van instead of 2 buses.
Yes, correct. For many years, for girls cross country, we're right on the cusp of those numbers where we can fit in a 12-passenger. When we do send them. In years, we're not gonna be able to take the busing.
Which does get dicey, so, each day. So 7 buses all kind of, if it's a squeeze, granted, we have a lot of spare buses, but when it comes to like the 84 passengers. it gets dicey, so that takes a huge burden off, and then we start talking tennis and, the other sports too. I mean, if we've only got a handful of kids, instead of taking our smallest one out there is a 59 passenger, instead of taking a 59 passenger with a driver, we got a van option.
Yeah, so it's taking care of our bus driving staff and, yeah,
And next fall, essentially, you're bringing on two sports.
right,
When you bring on tennis and you bring on. That is the part that is a complete game changer.
Yeah.
Also.
As a reminder, boys golf and girls tennis are proposed to move to the fall in 2025.
That is.
It's not proposed, it's done.
It's happening.
It's officially done.
It's pretty.
Chris, I appreciate you keeping an eye out and finding this van.
No problem, I enjoyed it. Just so everybody knows too, that 10 passenger that we ordered, that was pulled by Ford.
Mhm.
So the major dealerships aren't gonna be offering that as an option, buying a new 10 passenger van. And I have got zero answers from anybody of why, but that's the major dealerships. Eventually we'll get an answer trickle down, probably just same reason why we can't buy a new 12 passenger van. It's just a rule.
Mhm.
Well, yeah, we'd attempted to purchase what was it? It only had seats for 10, but it had an extra bracket in the back, which didn't have a seat.
It's a big deal, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that there was brackets in the floor meant we couldn't use it.
Yep.
Just because there was a bracket where you theoretically might have added a seat.
And this would be on top of, we did get two, I don't wanna say gently used. But.
Like, he was mild.
From Luther, a very cost-effective price, and we're gonna get some rust repairs. And there's an opportunity to put those into service, maybe not sending them to like Marion or Des Moines, but maybe a smaller, tighter service, but also opportunities to maybe not need as many buses. So.
With the potential addition of this vehicle, what would the size of the non-bus fleet be?
Off the top of my head, I don't have a count on that. Overall, like anything that we're all students with,
I'm thinking large vehicles, so something you take a group of students to,
Transit's
not a
what?
minivan, but something.
in transits, we have 4 currently. This would be 5,
Mhm.
not counting the new additional, which is where you still,
Yeah.
some time on those.
Mhm.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the 12 passenger van for $65,125.
I'll second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is to consider approval for a 2025 Chevrolet Silverado pickup.
And so this pickup, the white van outside or the white pickup outside with the blade on, that's part of our maintenance department fleet. And I don't even know how to describe it, but it needs a lot of work to be roadworthy. We've probably used it longer than we should. It's about 17 years old.
It's also,
Okay. And so we have a transportation truck that we're maybe loaned to the Buildings and Grounds Department right now. So the idea is we're still short a truck. We were gonna try to get estimates on what it would cost to fix, and basically we've been told that
yeah, it's not worth the effort, it's not worth the time for them to even do it. So certain aspects of it, it's not only just cosmetic, there's some major issues going on. It started with abnormal steering. That was brought to my attention after doing a little looking. We've got some frame issues going on with it. So aside from that, we've got some exhaust leaks, we've got suspension problems. You compile it, we could put Band-Aids on it, but the frame kind of takes out of the equation. And regardless where the vehicle goes and what department, I mean, I wouldn't I don't feel safe letting anybody drive it really.
Okay,
And that's the kind of general consensus that I got, like, wherever you're taking it, put it and park it, like, if you wanna take the blade off, do whatever you're gonna do, but especially any kind of hauling or any kind of weight, it's kind of dangerous.
so a pickup truck is needed department wide. We did agree to contract out snow removal.
We talked about
We talked about
looking
it.
into that, and that's one thing we haven't officially decided. We could put an RFP out. That's one thing that Curtis and I have talked a little bit about, but
Okay,
we may be doing some of our snow moving this year still.
okay.
So then that blade would go onto this truck, so this one potentially.
Will we put it on this one or we put it on the red one or?
Well, the red one's already got one, so I'm still waiting to get an estimate on cost versus effective. Are we gonna put a used blade, which has got some miles on it? So I need to get for sure, like, what's the deal with the blade? We got a bent frame on a truck from potentially from the plowing. We need a cutting edge. Is there anything that I'm not seeing? I've been in contact with Old Guard, so hopefully I can get some of that kind of detailed out. Just information wise, like, does it pay to put that blade on a truck, considering we have to put new mounts on?
We need to put a blade on the truck.
Yeah,
The question, you're answering the question of, should we put the used blade on or not?
yeah.
And there's some factors that we'd like to reuse it, but then it is a used blade and those have a lifespan like anything. But we need a blade on it because it's gonna be moving, we anticipated moving snow.
That's really what I was
Yeah.
asking, that we need this heavy duty of a truck because it's going to be moving. snow.
And this truck also serves as, for fine arts this is the truck we send when we haul stuff in fine arts?
Right now, we're using the red truck.
Okay,
It's a better, well, the white one was, which, I mean, we stopped doing that last year, and then we started using the red one, we got that re-outfitted with trailer brakes. Been using that one, so I mean, potentially you could use either one, alternate it, or, you know, it could go either way.
Meaning like the marching band
Yep.
trailer, the trailer that gets hauled to speech contest,
Yeah.
Yeah. FFA.
and so anytime
Yeah.
that a group pulls a trailer. An adult can drive it, can put a trailer on it, you can't transport any students when you're hauling a trailer. But we need that in a couple dozen times a year, do you think we would?
Yeah. We got some fine art stuff coming up right now, they just took it down for one band.
Good
Band.
band, yeah, for good to Dubuque.
The red truck, not the white truck, just for the record.
Yeah,
So needing a truck, needing a heavy duty truck, we had a lead on one locally that was used. That would have been under the $25,000 threshold, but it would have had about 100,000 miles on it. And it did get sold before, we could purchase it. So then we shifted gears to why don't we check out what a new one would cost? And so that led us to Carl Chevrolet out of Ankeny, which has the state bid for fleet vehicles. And as you can see, it's $45,687. So, that's competitively priced. And for 0 miles, that'll be that will be a good deal for us.
good investment.
Yeah, and that's one thing I would note, we'd certainly prefer to buy from local dealers. But we can't.
Well, and there was a point, as we discussed and learned about Carl being the state dealer, that if a local dealer, like they have the contract, so if somebody's buying it from them, they're paying a fee to get it from Carl. So there'd be a markup coming to us. Yeah, this is the least expensive way and this is the deal.
And the lead time on that is roughly 60 days. I learned that too. So as opposed to buying it from a local dealer, we were looking at 90 days, 180 days. Plus an additional markup from dealer to dealer,
Right,
but going straight to Carl's, it would be like roughly 60-day turnaround time from order to delivery, which. Right now, it kind of puts us in a bind, really. I mean, if we're planning using it for snow removal, time is kind of an issue.
winter is coming.
Which is kind of funny, there's any delay, because if you drive to Des Moines, going past Carl Chevrolet, there's 300 white pickups on the parking lot, so. Or thereabouts.
Yeah. Um. We've learned a lot about Carl, in the state bid in our office, so this, thanks for, validating that, but yeah, it's potential, we won't even cost 60 days, because they could have it on the lot, and it might just be a matter of coordinating what group or event has a trip out that way, and who could sign off on it and drive it back.
Mhm.
I mean, we might throw a driver into a van going somewhere in that direction.
Well, I'm
Someday.
going to Des Moines for Girls Union on Thursday, if anybody wants to ride.
Okay, so if we had the check cut, they can jump in with Ron
IASB.
or ISAB, this is true. So absolutely, there's opportunities.
Well, we need a motion first.
Yes. I'll make a motion to approve the proposed purchase of the 2025 Chevy Silverado 2500 HD.
A second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Exciting investments. Okay, next is approval of the 2023-2024 certified annual report.
It's just a very dull report with lots of words and lots of.
Kathy, so my question for you is, in this really robust document, what are the key things that you look for as measures of success in this report?
I guess just being, comparable to the last year, so we don't see any big fluctuations.
Right.
And I like to look at is it the air report or the notes at the back? Cause I think, so that's where the report's saying, hey, there's a difference here. And, I know I read a couple things, it's like, why aren't you spending as much money on natural gas? And you kind of explained how we shifted that cost from general fund to, management. And so there's some parts there. I did have to print it out. I didn't take my computer and put it on the side.
Yeah.
So, but that's always a piece to look at.
Those are all the warnings. You're able to certify the certified enrollment, but those are just all questions. If the state is looking at why are those differences there, or we should probably be doing something a little different. The one we're trying to always deplete would be the homeschool association fund balance. The only way to do that would to do a flex account, and that takes the board action. So then you can only spend those funds in certain areas.
Well, I'm sure it must be an intense satisfaction of finally clicking submit and it's accepting it. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you for all your hard work. I know that it's a big lift every single year.
And I don't want to downplay what the lift is. But I think back to when it wasn't automated on the computer. I don't understand how it was done. That,
On a typewriter.
yeah,
It's very hard. The same thing with an even money worksheet. You just have a pencil and your numbers and everything, something, you know what, a student showed up, you started erasing and starting over.
yeah, I know you told me that the other day and I just thought, I mean, it's bad enough as it is, but I can't imagine.
So when Excel came out, all of it was nice.
Yeah. Any questions or discussion about CAR report?
Is there an action we need to take?
Yes.
We do need to approve.
I move that we approve the 23-24 certified annual report. With our gratitude to Kathy.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Is that part one and part two, or are we doing them separately?
It's one report, it's just, I couldn't scan it to the computer in one document.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Because it's so long. Yeah. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next we have the 2023-2024 transportation report.
What we look at is probably, our cost per mile. And then that kind of drives what we charge, groups that want to take something to the same bends across our street when we transfer this.
Right. And we're a uniquely large district with a uniquely sized transportation budget. Correct?
Correct.
Are we still in the top tier
Yeah.
of transportation costs statewide?
They said when you're certifying your transportation report, it should be between $3 and $5 per mile cost. So we're just a little bit over that $4 mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess looking at it, this Friday night might be the statewide showdown of schools who have the most transportation budget when we play Western Dubuque. They've always been the most extreme.
Western Dubuque.
Yeah. Because they essentially have all of Dubuque County.
Okay.
Yeah, we're up there.
Yeah, I'm looking at on page 3, the total regular route miles traveled this school year by yellow school bus is 216,000 miles.
And if you look at number 5, the total miscellaneous route and miscellaneous even more, 242.
Right.
I'll make a motion to approve the 23-24 annual transportation report.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is the approval of request for allowable growth and supplemental aid for a negative special education budget of $1,060,186.60.
So the best part of this is, and I kind of put some stuff in my board notes, is anytime we can get allowable growth, we want to get it. That increases our spending authority, so it's not as good as cash, but it's districts, you want to have spending authority to go along with your cash, so that's a good thing. As you know, special ed costs are required. And they also are vary a lot. We kind of looked back, last year was only, I think, $319,000, but in the past it's been $700,000. It can be dictated a lot by a student or two, which we don't really want to discuss particular students at a board meeting,
Right.
but just understanding that we could have a student placed at out of state facility, and it might it can easily be $100,000 for a student. And I kind of shared, I knew that there were lots of newspaper articles about how I think the term was about 80% of the school districts in Iowa run a negative special ed deficit. So we're not alone in that. So we want to ask for it. We want to get our allowable growth. It's money that's already been spent. And Sarah and Kathy and I did kind of sit down and look through and kind of make sure, you know, revenue went down, so we had fewer students, but the cost did go up. But we have students with needs and IEPs that need to be met. So I would defer to Kathy or Sarah.
Yeah, the district that are being served in our buildings.
And that's always one of those things when they leave, when they're placed by an IEP at a different site. The site charges the fee that they need to charge.
And they might not even be placed by the IEP team. It might be placed, you know, by a health provider or something like that. And you don't have control over that, but you still have to pay the fund, the
costs for that.
So,
It's never a surprise. I know this is the 15th year in a row that we have had a deficit, so I don't expect it to change anytime soon.
and again, of all the deficits we can have, ones that come with the ability to get spending authority is the best kind.
I move that we approve the request for allowable growth and supplemental aid for negative special education budget. In the amount of $1,060,186.60.
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is approval of the LEP allowable cost requests of $85,560.01.
And this is another area that the state allows you to get spending authority. It's limited English proficiency. And, so a byproduct of doing the car is Kathy, puts these numbers in, and our deficit is the $85,000. I don't recall what it was last year, but if I had to guess, I would have said it would about 50,000, but I don't know that off the top of my head. And I don't, again,
I just have it up before.
okay, so I'll defer to Kathy. But I know, Russ Fairking had just shared an article with some staff about the growing, limited English proficiency population in Iowa. And so we're certainly not the only district that has, students coming with limited English proficiency.
We did hire another staff.
We did hire another staff person.
And I can't find it right now.
Okay,
That's okay.
I tell you what, I can put that, I can update the board. That'll give me something to add to Friday's,
You do some comparisons for the ELL and the transportation report.
That'd be great. Yeah, thank you.
absolutely. But in the meantime, I'd recommend that we approve this.
I'll make a motion that we approve the LAP allowable cost request of $85,560.01.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is approval of the 2023-2024 special education supplement.
So. Trying to think of the definition of this. It is purchase services, purchase special ed services from other LEA providers.
What was the question?
Defining SE, what's the difference between this and the special ed deficit?
The special education supplement is showing you, all the income and expenditures for special ed and how they're coming through the report. So like the first page is showing all of the tuition outputs. And you've got tuition in kids, receipts, your revenues, your expenditures by levels. Come up with that big deficit, and that's the last page. Is where the deficit is. Everything is pulled through the SES except for the transportation one. So anything we code to transportation has to flow through the transportation report first. And that's automatically put into the SES.
In
And then
following
it
the,
shows too, like your Medicare dollars that you get for certain students.
citing the rule of thumb that all supplemental spending authority is a good thing. I'll make a motion that we apply for it.
Well, do we get spending, this is just the explanation.
This is just the annual report.
Okay.
The annual report.
Good one, though. I like the idea that we could get more spending authority.
Well,
I like.
We can always try.
We approved it at a board meeting and everything.
Yeah.
So this is the detailed explanation of
Like
this.
CRSES transportation report, those are the three big reports that are due September 15th.
Yeah, and I mean, it just shows where students are coming from to get services in our district.
Or going out.
Or going out.
And this is like on the tuition down, it's just gonna show the cost of the tuition. If there's additional costs like transportation, those would not be in this report.
That would be in the transportation part where it's talking about how many special ed miles you've driven.
Mhm.
Then it's calculating to a special ed dollar.
Are we looking for a second,
There's there,
I'll second Ron's motion.
Good.
To approve the
is it
SES.
an official motion?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Correct me if I'm wrong in reading this, Kathy. It looks like we're serving the same number of students we did the previous year to this reporting year. So I'm reading on the second page.
Right. And then that could be just for one day. So.
Yeah.
Any kids that you get into this number, yes.
Mhm.
So, thank you.
Any further questions? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Approve the benefits flexible benefit fee.
This is something we do annually every year. And I'm gonna look at Darlene and have her help me explain this. This is our flexible benefit program.
Like a flex spending account.
Tax for either medical reimbursement or dependent care since the onset of not as attractive as it used to be, but the dependent care is a good benefit for teachers from last year.
Okay.
I move that we approve the 2025 Midwest Group Benefits flexible benefit fee.
I'll second.
I'm glad we can offer this to our staff.
Yeah.
That's great. Any further comments or discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The delegate, for the delegate assembly, this is the annual school board conference in Des Moines. And Director Zander, I'm really excited that
I assume you know.
you're open to serving in this important role.
Yes.
Yeah,
But all criteria, you're gonna be in Des Moines, you're willing to go, and
bingo.
nobody else wanted it, so.
That's bingo.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's
It's in
the
quiet
last part should be.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve Aaron as delegate for the delegate assembly.
I'm very happy to second that.
Great. We're not gonna take any further discussion. No, really, if there is discussion, we can. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is the superintendent's report.
Well, we sent out the virtual learning for late, so just kind of as a reminder, we can use up to 30 hours. And recapture not lose them on those late starts or early dismissals. It helps us with transitions, kind of keeps pace with stuff. And then it saves up, kind of hoard our hours for the end of the year. We'll still make up days per day, but everything gets added to the end of the calendar. And if you've looked, school ends on a Thursday this year. So we're trying not to we'd love to have a mild winter and not go past that Memorial Day Monday, but we always kind of keep that in mind. And if we have hours in the bank and we only go over a day or two, there's always the idea that the superintendent could appeal to the board that maybe we forgive a day or two of school. But we don't want to get people's hopes up because we haven't even hit December yet.
And now you've said it. at a
And now I've
meeting.
said it, I've spoken into existence. Yeah, I have, I shouldn't have. Good point. I wanted to put a plug in for the Excel grants. It's such a wonderful opportunity for the students in Decorah. And the foundation does a nice job on that. I didn't know all the details, but Carol helped fill me in. We distributed over $16,000 for children in Decorah, grades seven, six,
Six through, well, finishing up sixth grade through 12th grade.
68 through 12th grade to do, learning opportunities in the summer. And
Right, and these are generous donors from the Decorah area who have donated over $160,000 for, and we have this lump sum that we use the earnings from it every year, and students apply. And the donors have set up the criteria that it needs to be out of Winnebago County and not a sports related camp, but fine arts, engineering, music, adventure, a lot of adventure. Camps, like you said, in here to Alaska, Costa Rica, amazing. So,
yeah, I saw the pictures of Alaska and that looked pretty awesome.
inspiring opportunities for our students. We'd like to cast a wider net to get more and more students to apply.
So, but that's always a fun meeting. And just kind of, updating, I'll be working on an RFP for, mental behavioral health, providers. And I kind of wrote up some stuff. I did a little research. We talked as an admin team, we've got at least 2 organizations that would like to work with students in our school. We'd like to support that, but we want to make sure we have a criteria that, we have a little bit of a screening process before we do that. So Carrie Weber's got a document for us and that was one of those, I threw that question out to different superintendents groups I'm in, and a lot of people had kind of left it to their, maybe their counselor, or their social worker to set them up, and I wanted to have something with a little bit more criteria, and so I think I copied and pasted Iowa City's process, and I really liked what they did. So we'll work on that and hopefully get those set up, because we've got some students that they can work with in our district. I think those are probably the highlights of this month's board reports. Or my board report.
Okay. And our financial report, we have July, August, and September. Yeah,
And I went back and I started looking at the cash balances. Out of 6 of the accounts, they did go down from a year ago at the same time. The one that did go up was management. And that is strategic in nature, so.
Yeah.
The general fund is down, but if you look at the comparison, it's not down as much as it was in the past years. So it's just a matter of keeping watch of those balances over time.
right. And school finance is so complicated because there's so many different pots of money. So we have been trying to be strategic to be as conservative as possible with our general fund, right? Which some things were moved over to management, like you said.
Right.
Yeah.
And the food service one, it hit a high with COVID. So that's one that the state hasn't said it yet, but we're trying to deplete that over time or get it in a lower status.
Okay. Any questions for Kathy?
I just appreciate, I'll comment, I really appreciate having the annual, so you can kind of compare, because you get funds in at different times. And I like to be able to compare September of 25 with September of 24 and back that way. So I like the way that's presented. That's helpful.
And the cash flow just gives you a analysis of where we're at this month versus a year ago, the same month.
Any other questions for Kathy? Okay. We've reached the end of our agenda, so I will call the meeting adjourned. Thanks for coming in tonight, everyone.